Hey everybody, today I'm going to be reviewing the Netflix original War Machine, directed by David Michod and released May 26, 2017. But before I get into that, I just want to thank all my subscribers. I'm going to be doing a giveaway. I'm giving away a bobblehead version of Rocket from Guardians of the Galaxy 2. To win it, all you have to do is be a subscriber and leave a comment in this video. So let's get into War Machine. It's based on real events surrounding General Glenn McMahon through the Afghanistan War in 2009. Glenn McMahon's character is based on the real-life Army General Stanley McChrystal and portrayed by Brad Pitt. He's sent to Afghanistan to bring an end to the war, but essentially he finds himself in an unwinnable situation and refuses to believe the impossibilities. Ultimately, his hubris, his feelings of self-pride and self-importance gets him fired when he does this interview for Rolling Stone. The first and third act are kind of like a silly, dark comedy, and then the third act gets serious and kind of ties it all together. So with that said, let's get to my dislikes. I didn't like the fact that it was kind of like an anti-Obama movie. It has this dark undertone that I felt feels like the Afghanistan war is Obama's fault and he's the problem, he's the reason that we're not winning there in the Middle East, and it's just not facts, it's just not a reality. This movie takes place in 2009 and he was appointed in 2009, so he has very little to do with the actual real problem there in the Middle East, but yet you get this feeling that he does. Maybe he's just the face of the American occupancy there. Next is Ken Stanfield. I like that he was in this and I like his acting, he was great. But I just don't like the fact that he was portrayed as the incompetent, unsure ranger. It just makes it look like black soldiers aren't American enough and they question authority and they aren't sure, they're unstable. And later on in the third act, he becomes kind of unglued and just goes into the raid by himself, which I feel like soldiers wouldn't do in certain situations. Like that. Next, the score is strange, and I felt like maybe they had a couple scores to choose from and they went with the independent film score. It just didn't have that true gut feeling in there that made me connect with some of the characters, mainly the military characters. The next thing I didn't like was the soldier who got shot on the rooftop. There's a soldier who gets shot in the eyes or something like this, around the eyes, and it's just not clarified like what happened to him. They show his face and it's just like really red and bruised around his eyes, like there's no actual bullet hole or wound or scrape. It's just really strange. I wanted to know what actually happened to the kid. And lastly, Russell Crowe. At the end, they threw Russell Crowe in there for like literally 15 seconds just to play the new general walking through the airport, which I thought was just kind of silly. Anybody could have played that role, probably because he's friends with Brad Pitt or something like that. Anywho, with that said, let's get to the likes, the things I did like about it. This movie does a great job of showing how occupying the Middle East is a lose-lose situation and how we're just never going to gain any traction there. You cannot bring peace and freedom to a country by using rifles, and I think that's what they conveyed here in this film pretty well. I feel like most of my likes are very character driven. It was a very good cast. Everybody played their parts well. Brad Pitt, Meg Tilly played his wife, Anthony Michael Hall. Just everybody had their parts on point, and definitely the characters drove the film. Anthony Michael Hall playing actually Mike Flynn. Now, if you don't know who Mike Flynn is, he's the national security advisor now to Trump, who's been getting in a whole lot of trouble with the whole Russia thing. So to see him play this military character, he was pretty gassed up and pretty aggressive. So I'm just curious to know how much of that is actually accurate. You know what I mean? When it comes to movies like this where it's based on real events, you don't have any type of insider information, like people who are actually there. It's tough to know how accurate the information they're giving us is. Also, Brad Pitt's relationship with Karzai, president of Afghanistan. He was played by Ben Kingsley. How Karzai was just very disconnected and showed a lot with his body language how much he didn't really care to have any type of relationships with any army generals with the U.S. You know what I mean? There's a scene where Glenn McMahon's trying to link up with Karzai to go, around the country to try to bring some resolve to the country, and Karzai is like, I've seen the country, I live here. This is where I live. Another scene that was good is when Brad Pitt's character was describing the 10-2 scenario as far as taking out insurgents in the Middle East. When you have 10 insurgents and you remove 2 of them, you don't have 8, you actually have 20, because when you kill 2 of those insurgents, you're creating more. And I think that was actually accurate and a great part of the story to tell from the actual general's perspective. These things do take place. Generals do have briefings with the press, and what happened was Tilda Swinton's character stood up and dropped a whole bunch of knowledge. She played a German reporter and definitely had some solid questions and details about how to fight insurgency, you know what I mean, and how fighting insurgency was kind of impossible. Another thing that they put in there is how the U.S. military pays civilians in the Middle East if they accidentally kill their family members. It's really, really shitty, but these are facts, you know what I mean, that people need to know. You know, if I'm a soldier and I accidentally kill somebody's family over there, we pay them a measly like $2,500 or something like that, $3,000 per person. You know, like that's how much their lives are worth to us. You know what I mean? $3,000, which is pretty insane. Brad Pitt was great. You know, he had this eye twitch thing going on. He's just a great character actor. You know, his run, his jog, he had the whole general's jog down and his walk. Just really good. He could pretty much do anything. But ultimately, this movie definitely conveyed the feeling of hubris, you know, what it feels like to be on top of the world in the military, to feel self-important, to feel that pride, even when the situation you're in is unwinnable and the mission is impossible. Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Did you like this movie? Did you hate it? Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.